Bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs.
Bows and TKOs, we are live. Episode 23. I'm your host, Shane Gillette, and we're coming at you on this beautiful Tuesday, November evening in the Valley. You know, this is Antelope Canyon. If you didn't know, Google it, check it out. I'm planning my first in-person visit there here soon, as you have to do reserve your day, and they have a backlog. It's a whole thing, but beautiful freaking weather from now until April. The highs have been in the mid-80s. It's going into the 70s next week, just to be able to hit the cold plunge in the morning, have a cup of coffee, sit in the sun. It's always blue skies. You get a little bit of a cloud. It's like a high cloud day. We're loving it. And we're also loving this MMA action. Not only did we have fun with Sao Paulo, but this week in the Big Apple, Madison Square Garden, with what I think, if you follow me on socials, at Bows and TKOs, potential Fight of the Year candidate as well. So, let's kick it off. We have some fights that have been booked. Big announcement by Dana White this week, which you get a quick video of like a few minutes from Dana. You don't know if it's going to be bad or good news, but this one was full of good news. But the first fight definitely was a head scratcher for me. We have Raquel Pennington fighting Mayra Bueno Silva for the open bantamweight title, even though Bruno Silva just got a suspension for an USADA suspension for some sort of supplement, but she's booked. She's technically off the roster as she's suspended right now, but booked a fight for the title, 297. I guess the UFC didn't think there was any better opponents, and let's see, Jesus, is it Juliana Pena? The lady that should be fighting there is out due to injury, so she could not take the fight. Yeah, Juliana Pena. I don't know. I was mixing her with another old OG vet that's no longer there. I couldn't remember if that was her right name. But Juliana Pena, injured, not able to fight. So Raquel Pennington makes sense. There's Ketlin Vieira. Weren't going to give it to Holly Holm. Irene Aldana just looked pretty gross. So they're giving it to Mayra Bueno Silva, who is... I thought she was in the rankings, but I guess not. I feel like she's fought at flyweight and bantamweight. So let's look. So her last fight was against Lena Landsberg and Holly Holm. Returned to bantamweight. So she has fought at flyweight, but has been at bantamweight since 2022. We have Ketlin Vieira. Let's see. Maybe she fought recently with Raquel Pennington. Yes, she did. Split decision loss. I remember that fight. So that makes sense why maybe they didn't want to give it to her. They wanted it to be Raquel. Can't really do Holly or deeper. So I guess they wanted to keep the division active. This is the thing that makes sense. But coming off a suspension, I don't think I've seen that before. Someone who wasn't already the title holder just gets a title shot from being suspended. Pretty wild stuff. But that will be on the UFC 297 card, who has lost Volkanovski, Ilia Topuria. But insert Sean Strickland, Dracus du Plessis, UFC 297, DDP, and Sean Strickland for his first title defense. So you lose a fight, you get a fight. You get the Raquel Pennington cluster mess there. We also have Andre Fili versus Lucas Almeida for UFC 296. They're still adding fights to that card. That card is insane. if I did not have friends visiting that weekend, I'd be driving my behind up to Vegas and making that happen in person. We have Fareed Basharat and Taylor Lapilus, January 13th. We got the Bonfim brothers and the Basharat brothers running through the UFC. So always got to tune in when they're stepping into the octagon. And then the Valley standing up for this one, the bantamweight champion of the world, Sean O'Malley, is getting his rematch and first title defense against Marlon Chito Vera, UFC 299 in March. There's not an official date or an official location for that. And there's not an official date or location for this fight either. The headliner, Alexander Volkanovski, Ilya Topuria, moved to February, UFC 298. Unknown date in February and location. Can't wait to see where those go. I'll be booking 100-level seats for the first time for Sean O'Malley's contender or title defense here. And I cannot wait for this rematch. Lots of fun storylines there. And then booked today, we have Song Yadong taking on Chris Gutierrez December 9th. This was a Matchmaker Monday special. It just sounded too good. And, of course, the matchmakers thought the same. Excited for that bantamweight showdown. And not official, but per Ariel Helwani, Jan Blachowicz and Alexander Rakic, the rematch in the works for UFC 297, which will be in Toronto as well. So we'll stay tuned to see if that gets officialized. And kind of a surprising news line here, Talia Santos off the UFC roster. She's kind of been living in the top 5 of the division, has had some title shots, and she's off the roster. Must not have been able to come to agreements on new terms of her contract. She is coming off back-to-back losses, although they were against Erin Blanchfield and Valentina Shevchenko, where she fought for the championship, flyweight. But she had a 4-fight winning streak before that against Joanne Wood, Roxanne Modafferi, Jillian Robertson, and Molly McCann. But she is no longer on the UFC roster, especially, the women's side of thing, I feel like lacks depth a little bit. Although the flyweight division is one of the better ones. Because of that, everyone moves up in the rankings, and we get Joanne Wood in the top 15. She had a fight rebooked after one couldn't go through. So very interesting things happening there. Elsewhere in the MMA world, we had a grappling event, Polaris, I think it's the right way to say it, 26. We had one UFC veteran and an ex-UFC veteran, and Molly McCann getting a win via armbar, which is surprising. And then Craig Jones, Gerald Mearshart, the headliner. Exciting to see how Gerald, who has struggled in some of the grappling events, he lost to Andre Petroski, or maybe it was Joe Pyfer, but taking on one of the best. And Craig Jones made slight work of it. I tuned in for the main event, didn't miss much. He was able to get a crazy back take and sink in the rear naked choke within a matter of probably 30 seconds. So not too much going on there, but I was excited, always excited to see UFC fighters in the grappling against some of the best grapplers. It's like Ngannou and Fury boxing. You want to see how they match up. But we do have that Jorge Masvidal bare knuckle event. Who would have thought out of all people, I guess the street fighting guy that's been putting on all kinds of chaotic fights with some of the OGs in Miami. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but the guy, the makeup of Jorge Masvidal, I did not think would be putting on at this point, once a quarter, just bangers. Is it bare knuckle? Is it MMA? Is it boxing? Who cares? We got Alan Belcher taking on Roy Nelson. Big country, bare knuckle against one of the best bare knucklers out there. We get a guy who showed some glimpses in the UFC, still young, Randy Costa, bantamweight, taking on Jason Knight, who was in the Ultimate Fighter, fought really well as, in that showcase there. So that should be a fun one. Jason Knight ain't going to be scared of no bare knuckle, so that's going to be fun. Chase Sherman, who's had his time in bare knuckle in the UFC as well, is taking on Karl Sumentafa. We have Chris Sarro taking on Hector Lombard. Fucking Hector Lombard. And then you want to talk about scraps, man. Francisco Trinaldo, a guy who I thought should still be on the UFC roster, taking on Sasha Palatinikov. Again, November 10th, free on YouTube. I couldn't find the exact time of the start here, but you could check it out on YouTube and you could watch the stream post. I probably won't be able to watch the stream this Friday, so I'll try to tune in this weekend. Those should be some great fights, so I'm excited to see that. Congratulations, Jorge, on just getting us fight fans hyped up. But we did have UFC Fight Night Sao Paulo this past weekend. Your boy here at Bows and TKO, 6-2-1, another draw. Oh man, I still can't believe that. But 6-2-1, can't be mad about it. Good little percentage there. So that moves Bows and TKOs to 113-68-2. And there was just a lot of fights that fell off. One due to missed weight. Let me see if I could quickly find out why all these fights. There was like 4 fights off the card, which foreign countries, sometimes shit like that happens. Three fights. I think it ended up being 4 fights. So let's see. Armen Petrosian got sick. He caught a virus, so he pulled out. I believe, so that was November. He tweeted that later. But I believe that was morning of. So Armen Petrosian pulled out against Rodolfo Vieira. And then there was the weight miss. Vince Pichel was not having it. He said Ismail Bonfim didn't even try to lose weight. He's 3.5 pounds over. So he said, I will take your opportunity to miss weight or to fight because of that. And I have a little bit of mixed feelings about this. 3.5 pounds is a lot, especially by the time they fill in. Obviously Stephen Thompson talked about that. Veterans are trying to take a stand here. It's part of your job to make weight. So I can't really slight him, not by any means there. But there was one more fight that got canceled, and I can't. Let's see. Oh, yeah. The Contender Series alums, Daniel Marcos, Victor Hugo was pulled off as well, or taken off the card. I'm not sure what happened to that one. So we had a sickness, we had a miss weight. I'm not sure what happened with that one. But especially the Petrosian one happened literally hours before the show. But we're going to start breaking it down. We had some decent fights. We had Eduarda Mora with a round 2 TKO. She looked great. I believe her first or second UFC fight. Slight work, really. And then Elves Brenner. I mean, probably should have talked about it, but I didn't know his opponent that well, and I thought it might, be an easy win. Well, he gets a round 1 knockout, performance of the night, 50 G's against Kainan Kruszewski. But Elves Brenner show keeps on rolling. Let's get this guy a quality opponent. But we're going to kick it off. Angela Hill. Overkill Hill, the underdog. She's out there defending the top 15 against these young bloods. Unanimous decision over Denise Gomes. And this was just classic Angela Hill. Like I said, the volume, the control of the octagon. Even when Gomes did land some big shots, she didn't follow up combos. Angela was right in her face, trying to get takedowns. When she did get the takedown, she was easily able to stay in top control, move around, maybe get some ground and pound, maybe look for a submission opening. And Denise really had no answer from her back. So I wouldn't say complete domination, but a complete control from Angela Hill over the course of 3 rounds. She's almost 39 years old. This is a lady that I does not think gets enough love from MMA fans. I knew she was getting it as the dog, and I wouldn't be surprised if she does it again. But I would love to see her get a quality opponent and not have to fight these young and up-and-comers. She deserves it. Statistically, Angela landed 96 total strikes, 76 of which were significant. She had 5 takedowns and 9 attempts, better than 50%. Most of her strikes significant. I mean, she did work. She had a reversal as well. And Denise landed some good volume, 111 total, 62 of which were significant. I feel like 111 total, some of that was on her back doing nothing. But she did get one takedown in 3 attempts and a reversal of her own. But Angela, she starts a new winning streak. She's almost 39, but she is 3-2 since 2022, 5 fights and not even full 2 years. She stays active. She defends her 12th spot in the rankings. And Denise ends her 2-fight losing streak, her 2-fight winning streak, and starts a new losing streak. She is 3-2 in the UFC. So, what's next? You got to give me Angela and someone that gets the juices flowing. She deserves that. How about Karolina Kowalkiewicz? 2 women, especially Karolina, later in their careers, kind of having that resurgence. I think that would be a great battle of 2 OGs and much deserved. So let's make it happen. Moving on. An underdog I did not get right here, but golly, there's been viral tweets or X's or whatever the hell we say now about kind of a tangent here. Leonard Fournette's hamstring busting out of the shorts, got signed to Bills practice squad, kind of a big deal in the football world. How about the legs of Vitor Petrino, man? I feel like they got bigger. He's in Brazil. He's got the secret juice with Paulo Costa or something. They look bigger than I've ever seen. Golly, he could, just think of the force those suckers can give behind you. Well, he had some force and just barely connected on Modestas, and that's all it took. Lights out. Had the eye rolls and everything. Earned him another performance of the night, 50. Jeez. It only took Vitor 14 total strikes. 8 of those were significant. He did get a takedown in 2 attempts and a knockdown. And Modestas only landed 12 total strikes, 9 of which were significant. So I'm not surprised. I thought it would go past, I guess it was round 2. So round 1 was definitely them filling each other out. Vitor was very calm, cool, collected, just waiting for that opening. And Modestas, you don't want to close range too much against a guy like Vitor. I thought it would get into the later rounds and Modestas would make do. But early in round 2, just barely clicked him. Boom, lights out. So Vitor stays undefeated. His winning streak is up to 9. 4 of them in the UFC. And Modestas ends his 4-fight winning streak and starts a new losing streak. So what's next for these gents? Well, I'd love to see Vitor take on Felipe Lins. That would be a wild scrap. 2 hard hitters, 2 Brazilians. And for Modestas, how about Maxim Grishin? I hope he gets another opportunity. I know he just got back to the UFC. Took on a stud like Vitor in enemy territory. Let's get him a good fight. Moving on. Probably one of the biggest shockers of the night. Renat Fakhretdinov, majority draw against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. But boy, was this a fight. I mean, Renat had Elizeu almost 100% completely finished. I think some officials would have even finished that, called the fight off. He had him rocked big power shots. And much like the, fight of the night bonus leader. Gosh, I'm just blanking right now, man. I'm sorry, guys. I have to look this up at this point. Bear with me. Let's see. Featherweight. Come on, where's he at? Edson Barboza in that fight where he got rocked. Then ended up rocking him. It was a lot of the same. As the fight went on, Renat was hitting Dos Santos so many times, it gassed himself out. Round 2, I would say he won as well. Elizeu started picking things up, and he realized that, okay, I'm down a round and a half. I have to figure this thing out. Come round 3, Renat was so gassed. Elizeu was taking the advantage, had a takedown, almost had him finished on top control, ran out of time. And, I don't really see this being a majority draw. Again, I had Renat with rounds 1 and 2. But one big round with a big moment for Renat, one big round, big moment for Dos Santos. I haven't seen the scorecards. Some of the judges may have done 10-8 on both sides. I would give 10-8 round 1 Renat, if anything. So I don't know really how that could be a majority draw. It kind of doesn't make sense. I think Renat got the fight stolen from him, but he almost lost the fight at the very end. So I guess a lesson learned for both fighters. But I hate seeing things end up in a draw. This isn't soccer. That's why I'm not a soccer fan. But wild fight, just back and forth. We're not throwing shots. Dos Santos, with his age and miles on him, I mean, he did have the time off with the USADA suspension. Very impressed, and he just really pushed it. You know, it's like the Rocky. Just you get beat up enough, the other guy gasses out. You can start putting the beating down on him. Statistically, you know, this is a draw, so let's break it down here. Renat had 109 total strikes, 87 of those significant. Elizao had 115 total, 75 significant. So again, a lot of the bigger shots was Renat in round 1 and 2. Elizao had more strikes, you know, the volume over the course of the half of round 2 and all of round 3, that makes sense, but not as many significant. You know, he wasn't landing as big of shots. And then he had the submission attempt and was 0 for 1 in takedown attempts, was Elizao. And Renat had a reversal and the knockdown, and he had 1 takedown in 9 attempts. A lot of that was him being gassed, you know, shitty attempts. But, you know, Renat's on a 20-fight winning streak now. The draw, Dos Santos 2-fight. I really don't know what to do with these guys, but let's just rematch them. Two OGs, they had a great fight. They must have had fun. You saw Renat smiling and you know, yada yada in with them. I don't know why this fight can't get rebooked, and let's get a clear decision. I don't think they rebook a lot of fights of just random non-ranked guys in a draw, but it delivered, so to me it makes sense. Let's just rebook it. And then moving on, we had Caio Borralho with a unanimous decision over Abus Magomedov. Yeah, it's crazy how many fights got canceled here. And round 1, a lot like the Vitor first round, a lot of feeling each other out, right? A lot of processing, looking for the opening, so very slow start. Then things started picking up. Borralho was really leading the dance throughout the fight and controlling the center of the octagon, but he was not as aggressive as I'm used to seeing. And I thought he would try to get more bigger shots and look to get a finish, especially, you know, being in Brazil. But he was measured. You know, he's measured, needs to get the win, got the win. I could have saw this, though, with the draw. I was like, oh, shit, here we go again. But Caio landed 70 total strikes, 51 of those significant. He did have a knockdown, which that definitely won him the fight. And he was 0 for 1 in takedown attempts. Only 1 takedown attempt. That's crazy. Abus landed 39 total strikes, and 38 of those were significant. So Caio is on a 13-fight winning streak, 6 of them in the UFC. And Abus extends his losing streak to 2. He is 1-2 in the UFC. So what's next? Give me Borralho and Jack Hermansson, man. What a fantastic matchup that would be for us. And for Abus, how about Abdul Razak Al Hassan? Power strikers. Oh, man, that would be great. A ton of fun. And I think it's time for Borralho to get a top 15 opponent. Jack hasn't been fighting much. I think that would be great. You know, an opportunity for Jack if you beat Borralho. Some good momentum on his name, too. And then we had this fight right pretty much about how I expected it to be. We had Rodrigo Nascimento with unanimous decision over Dontel Mays. And Rodrigo tired himself out beating up Dontel. I mean, he was just landing massive amount of shots. And, you know, just like the Dos Santos fight, you know, over the course of the fight, round 2 to the second half of round 2 and into round 3, Dontel was just a little bit fresher and was putting the fight on to Rodrigo. But when Dontel would land, it didn't land with the same zest that Nascimento had. And I would say this was probably a closer fight than their first fight. But Rodrigo was so confident, he didn't even use the wrestling, which he could have. You know, he tried when he was gassed, but it wasn't really full attempts. Like, he could have got those early if he wanted to. He just wanted to walk through Dontel, which is very ballsy. But if anything, the big takeaway here is Dontel is durable, which is a big thing in the heavyweight division. So interested to see what happens for him next. But breaking it down, Rodrigo had 91 total strikes, 70 significant. He was 0 for 3 in takedown attempts. Dontel landed 105 total, 79 of those significant, was 0 for 1 in takedown attempts himself. So, you know, definitely Dontel won round 3, Rodrigo round 1. Round 2 was pretty close. I think Dontel just really had a lot more of that volume because he had more volume over the course of 3 rounds, but a lot of that was round 3. So Rodrigo extends his winning streak to 3. He's now 5-1 in the UFC since 2019. So not a ton of fights over the course of time, COVID and things like that. But he enters the top 15 at 15. And Dontel starts a new losing streak. He moves to 1-2 since 2022. So what's next for these guys? Well, Rodrigo versus Alexander Romanov. That would be a very, very fun fight. And for Dontel, he could square up with Justin Tafa. Two stylistic matchups there that would be great for fight fans. Let me get some water before this one. Man, oh man. I got to see a lot in this fight, man. We got Nicholas Dalby, the dog, with a second-round knockout over Gabriel Bonfim. Fight of the night. Well-deserved Nicholas Dalby. Although I picked Gabriel Bonfim, I am not shocked that Dalby won. I am shocked it came in this manner. What do I mean by that? This was the first opportunity for me to really see the power and striking ability of Bonfim, and boy, does it look good. But when you've steamrolled someone your whole career, and you're getting a veteran who is fighting to finish his career off strong at 38 years old, in this very, very deep class, you can't take a loss to an up-and-comer like this. You got to hold your ground. Now he has a real opportunity to fight in the top 15. I don't know what his contract situation is, but this has to help a lot. You take a loss here, take one more, you could be out. Now he's given himself at least 2 to 3 more fights, probably more. So, Bonfim early, round 1 and 2, was definitely passing the test, but he, all those power strikes, he's used to just steamrolling people. When you get a guy like Dalby that could eat those and try to shrug them off where the damage isn't as much as you think it is, then Rocky style, we had a lot of these fights where a guy was just early putting a barrage on. People were able to weather the storm, and that's what Dalby did. And the storm didn't last 3 rounds here, though. It lasted 1 round, and coming into round 2, Gabriel gave it all he had at the beginning of the round. Dalby was able to get through it, and he put a punishing beating down on Bonfim. And it was a great display. I mean, the striking improvements from Dalby, dude, it's been awesome. But for me, too, for Bonfim, there's nothing really to shake your head at besides we got to be prepared to measure our energy for 3 to 5 rounds if we want to be a champ one day. And we got to get the cardio better. We can't let a 38-year-old guy outgas us. So statistically, Nicholas landed 64 total strikes, 53 of which were significant. He had the knockdown and was 0 for 1 in takedown attempts. And Gabriel landed 47 total strikes, 39 of those significant, which, okay, you're throwing, let's say, 40 strikes over a round and a half of just straight gas. I mean, if I did that, yeah, I'd be gassed. I mean, I'm not trying to say that's not a big... But for someone who has the championship aspirations, you just can't have that happen. 47 total, 39 significant, and you pretty much gassed yourself to defeat. He had 3 takedowns in 5 attempts, so was able to get the takedown, had a submission attempt. But bravo, Dalby, for weathering that storm, man. Woo! So Dalby now extends his winning streak to 4. And Gabriel suffers his first loss that ends his 15-fight winning streak. He now moves to 3-1 in the UFC. So where do these guys go next? Well, I talked about this on Matchmaker Monday. Give me Nicholas Dalby and Michael Chiesa, a top 15 veteran. Why not after a performance like that? Chiesa's got to be down. Both well-rounded fighters. Chiesa needing a win after the loss to Kevin Holland. And for Bonfim, how about Phil Rowe? Another young, high-striking ability guy. I think those would be fantastic matchups, so let's make that ish happen. And then the main event. Jailton Almeida with a unanimous decision over Derek Lewis. And this was what you just did not want to see. I mean, Almeida, you got to do what you got to do. You're fighting the knockout king. But over the course of 5 rounds to just get an early takedown and try to just grapple to victory, it's tough. And even for major fight fans, that's tough. We wanted to see the evolution, what he's really capable of, and we did not get that. If there was a knockout artist or heavyweight that would be easier to take down and control, I would say it's Derek Lewis. Nothing against him, and he's worked on that a lot. But I'm not surprised. This was the path to victory. I guess I can't really blame him. But this doesn't help his stock. I thought with a good finish against Derek Lewis, you're right up there in the short list of heavyweight contention. Now, like, it's going to be a slow process moving up, and Dana White's going to want to see more in the rest of the matchmakers. But, yeah, he wrestled his way to victory. It's MMA for a reason. Jailton landed 120 total strikes, only 38 significant. A lot of that's touchy-feely stuff and top control. But he had 6 takedowns in 15 attempts. Was able to get them. 4 submission attempts. He had a reversal, so he was working. And Derek only got 28 total, 20 significant, while going 0 for 2 on his own takedowns. But to be honest with you, a guy like Jailton, younger, fitter, the fact that Derek could take fucking 5 rounds of being taken down and a guy trying to submit you and finish you and last, that's a pretty impressive feat, although I'm sure he doesn't want to hear that. I figured if Jailton would wrestle him by round 3 and 4, he'd easily find a way to get a finish. But Derek's battling. He's in great shape. He's really working on himself. So bravo on both aspects for both fighters in those situations. But Jailton, I mean, he's still a force. He's got a 15-fight winning streak now, 7 of which are in the UFC. And he deservedly moves up 2 spots in the rankings to number 9. And Derek starts a new losing streak. He is 1-4 since 2022. He's been active. He's been doing things. And I know that's not the best of records. He moves down 1 spot to number 11, but we all love him. We can't wait to see him come back. And I think he needs a good matchup. He's been taking these fights, taking the grapplers. Give us Derek Lewis and Jairzinho Rosenstrike, 2 strikers. I mean, why not? And for Almeida, give him a grappler. Feed him Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades ain't afraid of a fight. I'm sure he'd like to show that he can out-grapple Almeida. Those are the fights to make. Can't wait to see how that shakes out. But you want to talk about something that's going to deliver, man. UFC 295. And the prelims here on ESPN News, which is interesting. 5 p.m. Pacific, the main card pay-per-view. And we have some solid fights that we will not break down. Joshua Van put on a fantastic performance in his UFC debut. I got my eyes on him. He's taking on Contender Series alum Kevin Borjas. And then we have John Castaneda against Kyung Ho Kong. That should be a great matchup. And Matus Rebecki, who's 18-1. He's getting a short notice fill-in. Roosevelt Roberts, ex-UFC fighter and Ultimate Fighter alum from the veteran Contender Series fighters this season. I like that short notice fight better. We're really going to see how Rebecki can do against a long, lanky striker. See Joshua Van back. Solid matchup, Castaneda and Kong. So check those out. But we're kicking this off. There is an early prelims, which will be Fight Pass. I'm assuming ESPN Plus as well. Let's see. These aren't all the early prelims, are they? Let's see. I forgot to mark where the prelims start. And this stuff's ever changing. It could change. It's only Tuesday. Which I've been doing the last couple pods late week. I've been traveling, just trying to get shit together. I'm in sales. It was end of quarter. Now it's Q4. It's just crazy. The goal is Tuesday night every week. Every week, because then I could put out some reels and some glimpses throughout the week. 1 of the past card, 2 upcoming preview videos and snippets or reels, whatever you want to call them, for the next card. So that's the 100% goal that I'm shooting for. But some weeks it just life doesn't allow. But we are putting it out every week. Almost 3 freaking years. I said that on the last pod, and it's just crazy. Pushing 3 years. Let's go. I'm super proud of what has evolved from business and buckets to Bows and TKO's unfiltered business. Lots coming in 2024. I was like, what am I even looking at? So early prelims, we're talking, I think, 1 fight. Yep, so this is the early prelim headliner, and then it moves into the prelims. But we got Mark, the Olympian Madsen, 39 years old with a 12-1 record, taking on Jared Flash Gordon, 35 years old with a 19-6 record. Gotta get the odds up too. See what kind of dogs. There's some fun dog plays here. A little dog parlay. A lot of the time on pay-per-views, you bet the dogs one might hit, but a lot of the parlays and excitement that I have, it usually doesn't work out. Keep that in mind. But I'm excited for these odds. Here in this fight, we're getting 2 veterans who've had some moments, but I don't feel like they've had really career-defining moments. I'm sure Jared hates this, but if you think of Jared Gordon, you think of the Paddy Pimblett robbery, right? You think of Mark Madsen, I just think Olympian and tough. They need to get that momentum going at this point in their career, especially Mark, 39. Jared on the end of his prime at 35. But breaking these guys down, Mark has a wrestling style. He's an Olympian. He's recently changed his training out of Fight Ready here in Phoenix. Henry Cejudo and squad. Get the Olympians together. I wonder if he pitched Henry on that idea, or if Henry pitched him. But his wrestling background, he was a Greco-Roman silver medalist in the 16 Olympics. And in 2005, 7, 9, and 15, he got silver as well at World Championships. It's a lot of silver. I wonder if it's the same guy that kept beating him to get gold. I would Google that, but it might take me some time, so I'm not going to do that. But he is on a one-fight losing streak. He is 4-1 in the UFC since 2019. I needed Jamie, like Joe Rogan. Hey, Jamie, look that shit up. So, not a lot of fights since 2019, but 4-1, that's still a good record. He's a Cage Warriors alum, and in this fight, he has a 4-inch reach advantage. If strikers like to kick, I do bring up the leg reach sometimes, but they have to be more than 2.5 inches. If it's 2 inches or less, that's really not much of an advantage in my eyes. So that's when I talk about those. It's 2.5 or better. And leg reach only if I think the guy might be kicking. And then Jared, he trains out of Sanford MMA. He's got a brown belt in BJJ. He's a Cage Fury alum and former champion. He's on a one-fight losing streak. Had the no contest due to the Bobby Green accidental headbutt. I personally think Bobby Green would have won that fight. But he has not won since August of 2022. That plus the Pimblett. This guy is just desperate for some positive momentum here. He is 3-2, though, since 2021. Although neither guy is super active. Now, both fighters have good MMA grappling and wrestling. I do expect this to be more of a striking battle because of that. I wouldn't be surprised if Mark, as an Olympian, tries to mix in some grappling. But both men have good gas tanks. They've showed their cardio. I think Mark does have a slight striking advantage, and obviously the grappling advantage. Slight though, not huge. Because he was a Greco-Roman wrestler, doesn't mean that he's a better wrestler in an octagon up against a cage with gloves than Jared Gordon. Greco-Roman especially, it's not the same as folk style. It's a lot more tossy and turny, which you're not going to be doing those things in the octagon. But he still has the wherewithal, the body control, those types of things. So I give him a slight grappling advantage. And I think he might use that just to try to tire out Jared more and look to win on the scorecards. I don't think anyone's going to get a finish here. Jared will have the jiu-jitsu advantage, but I doubt Mark messes with Jared on the mat. He looks to get takedowns, some top control, maybe get it back up, maybe up against the cage, just wear on him. I don't see him trying to get a takedown and mess with the jiu-jitsu side of things. For that reason, we got Mark Madsen as the plus 150 underdog. I'm taking the dogs. The dogs eat anywhere in the world, but definitely in the Big Apple at MSG. We're taking the Olympian. We put him on that parlay as a dog. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Into the prelims, we have Nazim, the Black Wolf Sadikov, 29 years old with a 9-1 record, taking on Vyacheslav Slava Borshev. I think he used to be called Slava Claus. 31 years old with a 7-3 record. Now, this fight is between two men looking to make a name for themselves in the UFC. They're pretty much in their prime, so the time is now, and we're better to do it and start the juices going in MS freaking G. For those of you that are sports fans, and I bring a lot of other sports and just random tangents here. I used to do a full sports show. I'm very, very up to date with NFL, college football, NBA, college basketball, somewhat hockey, and MLB. And there's only a few arenas that I haven't been to that I have to do it. And I haven't been to MSG for an event, but I've literally walked around it and the shit gave me chills. There's an aura of MSG. So just me, a casual human that doesn't fight and, aren't all fucking fired up. Imagine fighting another man in front of thousands in an arena like that. The rumble in the jungle, the history that's been there. Come on. Now, Nazim, he trains out of Longo Weidman MMA. He's a 9-fight winning streak, 3 of which are in the UFC. He is a Ring of Combat Contender Series and Cage Fury alum, and 6 of his 9 wins are via knockout. Vyacheslav trains at a Team Alpha Male. He's on a 1-fight winning streak. He is 3-2 in the UFC. He is an LFA, Titan FC, and Contender Series alum. 6 of his 7 wins are via knockout. Both train with a bunch of dogs. They're on winning streaks. Nazim, obviously a little bit heavier. They've been in all the great promotions, and they have a lot of knockouts. That spells fun. Now, this fight, not only is it going to be fun, it should be chaos. Both men like to deliver the big shots, turn the fight into a scrap. It's not going to be a technical kickboxing bout. Vyacheslav has definitely shown that he can struggle with grapplers, so I think he will struggle with Nazim's grappling ability if Nazim doesn't just look to, see red and go crazy in there. So I expect Nazim to look for takedowns, but he can deliver with his own striking. I think he's going to look to mix it in just to keep him guessing. But I am taking the Black Wolf. I am putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Right now, the Black Wolf is a minus 138 favorite, so not a huge favorite. It should be a fun one. Moving on, we got Tabitha Baby Shark Ricci, 28 years old with a 9-1 record and the number 10 next to her name, taking on Lupita Lupi Godinez, 30 years old with an 11-3 record and the number 13 next to her name. A top 15 showdown. I mean, what a fantastic fight between 2 women who are cruising, who have shown a ton of potential of women that they think can be into contention, and they're in their primes. I do feel like with women's MMA, especially the new era, their primes is a little bit earlier than the men because they come in earlier. There's a lack of depth in the UFC for that. So they come in a little bit earlier, get to earn their stripes. Their primes are more so, I'd say 26 to 31. A ton is on the line because of this, though, for both women. If you're the winner, you're going to have a nice path into the top 10. You're going to be cruising. You may even get a top 5 opponent in your next bout. You get a good win there. You're right in business. Where if you lose in your prime, you're going to be pushed out of the top 15 or close to, and you're going to be battling all these other up and coming, maybe veterans like Angela or all the up and comers, the Emily Ducates, what was Aaron Blanchfield's, who just coming in with so much skill and talent, and you don't want to be in that position. Breaking it down, Tabitha has a black belt in BJJ, a black belt in judo. She's on a 4-fight winning streak, and she is an LFA alum. Now, Lupi has a purple belt in BJJ. She did some crazy stuff recently. She has the record for fastest turnaround in modern UFC history, which was 7 days. And she has the record for the shortest span between not 1, not 4, but 3 fights in modern UFC history. 42 days, so a month and some change for 3 fights. Most people have a 12-week, probably 8-week fight camps for a fight. She is an LFA alum and former champion, and she is on a 3-fight winning streak. Now, per usual, let's be honest, I don't really think anyone is going to have a speed advantage against Baby Shark. So she's going to have the speed advantage, but Lupi definitely will probably have the power advantage. But can Lupi slow Tabitha down? And how can she do that? Can she get her up against the cage? Can she wear on her? Can she, what can she do to avoid the volume of Ricci? Is it just one power check hook to keep the separation? I'm not sure. But I think we're going to get a mix of not only Tabitha having the striking advantage and Lupi getting some big shots, but I think that Tabitha is going to have like the grappling wrestling advantage. And it might not come down to that at all. But if there is going to be an advantage there, I think Tabitha is going to have the takedown advantage. So it will be interesting to see how it shakes out, plus the jiu-jitsu games. Lupi definitely has like the more fuller figure for this weight class. Tabitha seems to be a little bit smaller, walking in fight night once they're rehydrated and everything. So let's say it does go to the mat. Lupi has a little bit lower of a belt ranking in BJJ, which doesn't always mean everything. She does have the size advantage, so I'm interested to see how the MMA grappling would shake out if it comes to that. But this might just be a striking affair. We got speed, power. I'm taking Baby Shark. She just seems to be one of the more technical women in this division. She trains with a bunch of studs and really does a good job in mixing in everything where no one could really guess at what she's doing. For that reason, I'm taking the plus. No, that can't be right. She's an underdog? Underdog? Let's see. This is on, I just type in UFC Vegas odds, Vegas Insider. Let's do the one where it shows a lot of sports books here. Let's see. Is she really the underdog? Yeah. All books plus 130, 140. On the one I was looking at, plus 130. I mean, shoot. Even better than I remember. There is some fun underdogs. We're taking Baby Shark as the underdog. She's coming to eat. We're putting her on that parlay as an underdog. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Oh, man, can't wait. I have a friend coming from out of town, fellow Steeler fan, watch the games, watch the fights. And, boy, I have a feeling we making some money this weekend, and that makes trips that much better. We're already taking Madsen as the underdog, Tabitha Ricci as the underdog, and I'm pretty confident in those. The Mark Madsen one, I wouldn't really probably parlay that. Maybe, an underdog parlay. But sheesh, we're in business, man. So watch out for Baby Shark. Moving on. This guy can't be the underdog. Well, this is short. Yep, no, he's not. We got Steve Astro Boy Erceg, 28 years old with a 10-1 record and the number 14 next to his name, taking on Alessandro Nono Costa, 27 years old with a 13-3 record. Now, we're getting two young prospects here who want to put on a show. They're up in the prelims ahead of a lot of good fights for a reason. I mean, Astro Boy put on a show in his UFC debut against a very good ranked David Dvorak. And Alessandro had a short notice debut against Amir Albazi. He lasted all 3 rounds. And he recently defeated a very good Jimmy Flick. So stay tuned for this one. The flyweights are crazy too, man. Now, Stevie is on a 9-fight winning streak. 1-0 in the UFC. 6 of his 10 wins are via submission. Now, Alessandro is on a 1-fight winning streak. He's 1-1 in the UFC. He is a Contender Series alum. 6 of his 13 wins are via submission, 4 via knockout, so 10 of his 13 wins are via finish, but both of these guys with a bunch of submission victories. Now, Alessandro, 2 of his 3 losses are via knockout. For me, I'm just really excited to see Steve next fight, man. He really shocked us coming into the UFC. I mean, I don't think anyone expected that kind of performance. And he's squaring up against a very well-rounded flyweight who's a little bit crazy on the feet, which you never know if they can catch him. He's got a great ground game. He's Brazilian. And I think it's really going to open up for both fighters to showcase their full talent, so I'm super stoked on that. But I can't take against my boy Astro Boy after that performance. Alessandro is going to be a great measuring stick. We'll get to see more of him, get some more film on him. But I am taking Astro Boy. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Fired up. Moving into the main card, we got Pat Sabatini, 32 years old with an 18-4 record, taking on Diego Lopes. I had to check the Vegas odds here too. 28 years old with a 22-6 records. Now, both of these fighters have had some good success early in their UFC careers. I'm not saying it's early in their career, but they haven't been in the UFC for a ton of time. Diego's last fight, he submitted like the jiu-jitsu guy, a very talented Gavin Tucker early. And he's showcased his MMA grappling as he's used that for sweeps, for submission attempts and moves. He took on Movsar Vloev and damn near beat him. But the question is, can his striking compete with Sabatini's? Breaking it down, Pat has a black belt in BJJ, so he's no slouch either. He's also got a black belt in Tang Soo Do, which is a form of karate. He has a D1 wrestling background out of Rider University. He's a Cage Fury alum and former champ. He had 3 successful title defenses in Cage Fury. 11 of his 18 wins are via submission, and 2 of his 4 losses are via knockout. Now, Diego is on a 1-fight winning streak. He is 1-1 in the UFC. He's a Contender Series alum and Fury FC alum. 12 of his 22 wins are via submission, 8 via knockout. So a very impressive 20 of 22 wins via finish. Now he does have a 2.5-inch reach advantage and a 3-inch leg reach advantage in this fight. Now, Pat's very well rounded. He's not great anywhere, but he's freaking solid everywhere. He has more of a traditional wrestling grappling style than Lopes. Lopes is going to, try to pull guard. His long, lengthy legs, that 3-inch leg advantage, puts you in a triangle and use that as his offense. I do expect a majority of this fight to be a kickboxing war. And I do think Pat is more of a technical striker, just cleaner, crisper strikes, a little bit more power. And I think Diego's just going to look to make this a dogfight like he has so far in his UFC career. I wouldn't be surprised if Pat gets this up to the cage, tries to wear on Diego as well. Now, Lopes, he's shocked the world and definitely impressed me, but I'm picking Pat Sabatini in this fight. I am putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Let's go. Trying to get that paper this weekend, you know what I'm saying? Whew, I forgot this fight somehow, but golly, you want to talk about bangers. We got Matt, the Steamroller Frivola, 33 years old with an 11-3-1 record and the number 14 next to his name, taking on Benoit, the God of War Saint Denis, 27 years old with a 12-1 record. Again, straight banger. This is going to be the fight if there hasn't been a tone set that is setting the tone. The rest of the night is going to be carnage from this fight on. You should be ready for the pay-per-view. It's going to be worth the purchase. Maybe you missed the Pat fight. You cannot miss this fight. This is going to get MSG bonkers. It's going to get the pay-per-view showcase kicked off, and you cannot blink for this one. Now, both men, they're very offensive and active to get finishes. Matt is coming off 4, not 1, but 4 first-round finishes in a row. Saint Denis hasn't seen a third round in his last 4 fights. So again, banger. Now, Matt trains out of Sierra Longo. He has a brown belt in BJJ. He is a World Series of Fighting, Titan FC, and Dana White Contender Series alum. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. 4 of his 11 wins are via knockout. 2 of his 3 losses are also via knockout. So to knock out or to be knocked out. Benoit is a southpaw fighter. He has a black belt in judo, a brown belt in BJJ, and he's been showing out as well. 2 of his last 3 fights have been fight of the night or performance of the night. He's a Brave alum, and of course, 9 of his 12 wins are via knockout. Now the steamroller is rolling. He's coming off a very impressive hometown finish. Well, not the steamroller. Benoit is rolling. Coming off an impressive hometown finish on the Paris card against Thiago Moises. The steamroller is rolling. He's a veteran who has fought stiffer competition in the octagon. And I think he's going to showcase that in front of this massive MSG crowd. Matt, I think, is going to live up to his nickname. Use his experience, his fighting IQ. Sierra Longo, that team's going to put up a good game plan to get the job done and defend his top 15 spot. Now, Saint Denis, if he's going to get the job done here, those massive kicks that is showcased in his last fight, I think that'll make the difference. I just think Matt's going to showcase that he's a little bit more durable. He's been there, done that. He's been in these wars before. He's been finished as well. But he's going to go in there to kill or be killed. He's the underdog. I'm taking the dog, the steamroller, Matt Frivola. But I am not putting him on a parlay. This is just flip a coin. Then moving on, the showcase for the female badasses. And again, just because this is a woman's fight doesn't mean there won't be carnage and chaos in MSG. It's here for a reason. We get Mackenzie Dern, 30 years old with a 13-3 record and the number 7 next to her name, taking on Jessica Batistaca Andrade. 32 years old with a 13-3 record as well. That's interesting. And the number 5 next to her name. Although this is going to be carnage, this really is a clash of styles fight. Two women in their primes looking to make a title shot run. The first for Dern, multiple for Andrade. She's been up and down. And this is a very, very talented strawweight division. Now, Mackenzie has solid striking. She's improved in that regards. You know, she showcased that in the Angela Hill fight. Her grappling and jiu-jitsu is next level. Jessica has shown weaknesses there, but Jessica can destroy any game plan with her power and aggressiveness and has done that time in, time out. I think of the Rose Slam, Rose Namajunas, right? Just come out the gates firing. But breaking it down, of course, Mackenzie has a BJJ style. She has a 3rd-degree black belt in BJJ. She won gold in the 2015 ADCC World Championships and also the world's for gi and no gi. In 2014, she was the no gi world champion. In 2016, she was the world champion with the gi. So she's done it both places. She has the most submission wins in UFC women's strawweight division history with 4. She's on a 1-fight winning streak, but is 3-2 since 2021. She's a Legacy FC, LFA, and Invicta alum. And as you would expect, 7 of her 13 wins are via submission. Now, we talk about the advantage that Mackenzie has with the grappling, but Jessica does have a black belt in BJJ. She just doesn't act like she has it, right? Some people, you go to MMA, you're not thinking BJJ stuff. You're thinking just domination, especially the Batistaca. She is the former strawweight champion, speaking of the Rose fight. She is tied with Ronda Rousey and Amanda Nunes for the most performance of the night bonuses in UFC women's history with 5, and that's because she brings chaos, carnage, and finishes. She has the most post-fight bonuses in UFC women's history with 9. I mean, she's been cashing them things, man. She also has the most post-fight bonuses in the strawweight division with 8. So one of those was in a different division. Why? Well, she is, let's see. Well, I guess we'll wait to get there. Well, she's the only woman in UFC history to win a fight in 3 weight classes. She has the most bouts in UFC women's history with 25. The first standing arm triangle choke in UFC history, which won her the 2022 Submission of the Year against Amanda Lemos. She is on a 3-fight losing streak. 2 of them were in strawweight. She is 3-4 since 2021, so hasn't been on the winning side of things, but has fought some of the best. 9 of her 24 wins are via knockout, 8 via submission, so 17 of her 24 wins are via finish. And 5 of her 12 losses are also via knockout. A little bit not as traditional on the women's MMA side of it, but she knocks out or bees knocked out. Let's be honest, Andrade, every time I say the Batistaca, because she is a savage, man. She is a wrecking ball. She looks to bully her opponents, and she comes out firing massive hooks. And usually one of those lands, and the other women don't want anything to do with it. She asserts herself, she controls the center of the octagon, and not many people can back her down. Now, Mackenzie Dern is durable. She isn't going to let Jessica just back her down, right? Her and Angela Hill were going at a war, and Mackenzie was coming forward. Now, I love Angela Hill. I gave her flowers about her last fight, but there's just a little bit difference in the aggressiveness and the power ability that Jessica Andrade brings. Jessica does tend to get sloppy, though. When she does that, Dern can find her opportunity for a takedown and get a finish. I'm probably betting on that outcome. Now, Mackenzie, she's just more of a technical fighter as a striker, which is kind of weird to think of at this point in her career. Early in her career, she wasn't known as very much of a striker, but she's been working on it. This is the biggest test. Jessica is the favorite, minus 188. Mackenzie Dern's the underdog. Well, we're keeping the money on the dogs. Mackenzie Dern in MSG coming to eat against one of the most probably, I think they showed on the UFC Embedded today, episode 2, her strength and conditioning coach is like, we're fighting a stud. Like, I would be afraid to fight Jessica Andrade, and that's some real talk shit. But we're taking the underdogs. We're putting money on Mackenzie Dern. We put it on that parlay, and we're marking it down. And guess what? We're getting that bread. And then we have the heavyweight and light heavyweight championships. Woo-wee! John Bones Jones is the GOAT. He's one of my favorite fighters. I've said this recently. I am more excited about this fight than what we would have saw with him and Stipe Miocic, which is saying a lot. We're getting Sergey Pavlovich, 31 years old with an 18-1 record and the number 2 next to his name, taking on Tom Aspinall, 30 years old with a 13-3 record and the number 4 next to his name. If you would ask me, even early this year, Shane, who are the 2 most dominant guys in heavyweight that no one wants to fight and will probably be fighting for the title? I would say Sergey Pavlovich and Tom Aspinall. Cyril Gane would be close to being in there, but both of these guys I think would win against Cyril Gane. But again, our theme, we got the steamroller, we got Mackenzie Dern, sporting the dogs. You want to talk about chaos and carnage? This is straight modern day gladiators. Grab your wine, grab your outfits. This is going to be a collision in the octagon. Not only that, but both of these dudes, of course, are massively huge. They're in their primes, and it's a short notice bout. Tom Aspinall is doing what I don't think many people would do, taking this on short notice. But the problem is, we just saw the Abu Dhabi UFC 294 event, the co-main and main short notice. I personally think not short notice. Kamaru wins that, especially if it's a 5-round fight, as which was expected when they were at welterweight. And I'm not saying Alex would win that fight, but we saw the first fight look a lot better than that one. I think it would be a lot better display. So the difference is this is heavyweight, though, and they're going for a finish. You don't necessarily need to train for the finish. You just got to go in there and capitalize. But you would like to have more game planning and preparation, especially for a guy like Sergey. Now, breaking these gladiators down, these heavyweight fucking freight trains. Sergey trains out of Eagles MMA. Since entering the UFC, 4 of his 7 fights have been performance of the night. Why is that? Because he's been getting finishes. He's right now on the longest first-round knockout winning streak in UFC history with 6 back-to-back first-round knockouts. He also, because of that, has the most knockdowns per 15 minutes in UFC history at 6.31. So in a 3-round fight, he's getting 6.3 or more knockdowns. He's a Fight Nights Global alum and former champion as well. He is on a 6-fight winning streak. He is 6-1 in the UFC. His only loss was his debut fight against Alistair Overeem, who was straight savagery as well. I believe might have popped for some stuff at the time. 15 of his 18 wins are via knockout. And the big one here, he has a 6-inch reach advantage. When you got power shots coming like that, 6 inches could be the difference. Now, Tom has a black belt in BJJ. Since fighting in the UFC, 5 of his 7 fights have been performance of the night. Same theme. Why? Because he's been getting finishes. He's been rolling. He's a Cage Warriors alum. He is on a 1-fight winning streak, but that was because the fight before he had his knee blowout against Curtis Blades when he was on a 6-fight winning streak. So he should be 6-0, but they gave him a injury TKO loss there. That actually cost me 11 G's. I had the whole London card correct on like a $25 parlay. Thought I won it. I thought for sure Tom would win that fight. Blew his knee out in like 10 seconds. First step back. I was like, oh man. Gotta love Vegas sometimes. But 10 of his 13 wins are via knockout. Now, I do not think this is going to get out of the first round, especially on short notice. I applaud Tom Aspinall's determination. He is a warrior, a true modern-day gladiator. I just don't think this is going to help him. Again, we saw what happened with the short notice disadvantages in Abu Dhabi. These guys are both foreign coming to the States, so they're dealing with a lot of time changes and things like that as well. And I think Sergey's just going to get a quick finish, but both fighters will land big shots. Sergey has shown some of his durability. We haven't seen Tom get hit as much. And Sergey has fought a little bit higher level competition in the UFC. But with Sergey's reach advantage, mixed with the confidence that he has right now and the power, it's going to be too much. I mean, it was a fighter tour ago where he was at the slots in Vegas making some bets before his fight. I mean, this guy, he's full of it right now. I do think Tom will have the mobility and speed advantage, but I don't think that's really going to have a chance to pay dividends, as this is a car accident, straight collision about to go down in the middle of the octagon. For that reason, I'm taking the favorite. No, come on. That can't be right. Yeah, okay. This one says he's an underdog. There are books that have Sergey Pavlovich as an underdog. If you could find that, throw some bread on that. But maybe it opened like that. But this one's saying it as well. That's crazy to me. Well, we won't say he's a dog because in most books he's not. But I'm taking Sergey. We are putting him on that parlay. We are marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on to the main event. Potential fight of the year candidate and Yuri Prochazka, the 31-year-old fighter with a 29-3-1 record and the number 1 next to his name, taking on Alex Poatan Pereira, 36 years old with an 8-2 record and the number 3 next to his name. Well, Shane, why is this a fight of the year potential? Well, I've been hyping this up since it's been booked as a potential fight of the year candidate. And as Yuri said best, he's coming. He said, I'm coming. He's coming. I mean, I think this fight is even more exciting now that Yuri's been out for some time. Because Yuri is the most, questionable fighter out of all fighters that have been a champion in the UFC. You know, he lives the samurai way. He's punching trees. He's doing the Aaron Rodgers darkness retreat and fast. This guy is full savagery. But what makes this exciting with his layoff is he's basically had a year and some change, really about a year and a half, to add stuff to his game. You know, as he's gone up in the UFC, we did not see any grappling and wrestling ability. He showcased enough to get through 5 rounds and get a finish over Glover Teixeira, although it was pure exhaustion, really. But Glover had out-grappled, out-cardioed and smothered people in his reign. And Yuri was able to get over that. So what is he going to add? But also knowing that he was going to fight Poatan, who is the star pupil of Glover Teixeira Fitness and MMA, you would assume that Glover is preparing him for what the Yuri is that they saw almost 2 years ago. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the Yuri or the game plan that he's about to come out to. I really can't wait. If someone says this is what's going to happen, they have no clue. Because when you look at the other side, Alex is a kickboxing legend, one of the best kickboxers of all time, and he's not a traditional MMA guy. He's only got 10 UFC fights, and really, I don't know if he would be where he is if it wasn't for the Israel Adesanya beef and storylines from kickboxing. So, lots of intriguing storylines and question marks, especially when Yuri, the samurai, steps in the octagon. But we're going to break it down. Yuri, he has a Muay Thai style. He's the former light heavyweight champion. His last 3 fights have been fight of the night or performance of the night, because when he shows up, he's been showing out. He had the 2022 fight of the year against Glover Teixeira. He's the first Czech Republic champion. A lot of his pro fights came from Rizin, where he was a former champion. He's on a 13-fight winning streak, 3-0 in the UFC. It's crazy he's only had 3 UFC fights. 25 of his 29 wins are via knockout, and 2 of his 3 losses are via knockout. So as the samurai does, you die on your sword to knock out or to be knocked out. Now, Poatan has that kickboxing style. He's an orthodox fighter. He trains out of Teixeira MMA and Fitness. He has a black belt in kickboxing, brown belt in BJJ. He was the former middleweight champion before he came up to light heavyweight. 3 of his 6 UFC fights have been performance of the night. You know, he's in 6 UFC fights, his star is born. Him and Yuri both. I mean, these are very, very rare situations here. He was the 2022 Male Fighter of the Year and Breakout Fighter of the Year. That's when he stole the show from Izzy. He was just inducted into the Glory Hall of Fame this year, and he was the 2014, 17, 19, and 21 Glory Champion. He was also the 2019 Glory Fighter of the Year, and in 2017, he had the Glory Fight of the Year against Israel Adesanya in kickboxing. He's on a one-fight winning streak. I saw him in Salt Lake City against Jan Blachowicz, his first light heavyweight test. I picked Jan. Didn't quite go that way, but it was a very, very close fight. He is 5-1 in the UFC, and 6 of his 8 wins are via knockout. He is also a Jungle Fight and LFA alum. Now again, what makes this fight amazing is both men do not have a lot of fights and fighting experience in the UFC. Alex made his living off being the kickboxing champion, while Yuri dominated Rizin for 4 years. Now, I think Yuri is going to bring a lot of new things to his game plan and strategy for this fight that we have not seen. Alex especially is going to be partnering with Glover to try to take away the advantages that Glover experienced and how they could win over the course of 5 rounds, because he knows him well. But I believe Yuri, although Alex works with Glover, is going to have a slight grappling advantage when it comes to MMA, and he may look to mix that in and have more of a grappling heavy approach than usual, especially early. Now, I think his strategy is going to be keeping Powhatan, the stone power fist dynamite that he's got in his hand. He's going to look to keep him moving, to tire him out, like he did with Glover. You know, Alex is going to have the power advantage, but is he going to be able to do enough to win the scorecards in a 5-round fight if he doesn't get the finish? That's the question. Is he going to get the finish? He's got great leg kicks. Is Yuri going to be prepared for that? I assume. I assume he tries to do some leg kicks of his own. Israel had some success with that, you know, chopping each other's legs. And you got to get that power away. Jan did it a little bit too in their fight. They both leg kicked each other. But I think he's going to mix in some grappling. I think he's just going to keep moving, coming in, coming out, blitzing, finding some weird samurai angles and moves. And I think this goes 5 rounds without a finish. And if so, I'm betting on Yuri. I'm not thinking that Alex is going to get the finish. I expect Yuri to be prepared for this. And he's younger. You know, people forget Alex. Yeah, I mean, you know, he could be in his UFC prime, but he is 36 years old. We're talking about a 5-year difference here. And Yuri has a lot more of MMA experience. But again, Alex went tit for tat with 2 UFC champions, Jan Blachowicz and Israel Adesanya, and made it look easy. So it's going to be a great one. If anyone, again, says they know what the hell's going to happen, they don't. But I'm taking Yuri. I'm taking the underdog, plus 110. The dogs are taking over MSG. Hoo, hoo. We're taking the samurai Yuri Prochazka. We aren't putting him on a parlay, though, because this is going to be chaos. But, man, I can't wait to recap this fight. I hope it lives up to the expectations, because this is one of the more extraordinary title fights we've seen in the UFC in a long time. I mean, with John Jones, the light heavyweight division's been a revolving door since he's left. It's been chaos. It's going to continue to be that way. Can't wait! And then next week, we have a week off. No, we don't. We have a solid Fight Night Apex card. Back to the Apex. No more Fight Night locations. This one's headlined by Brendan Allen and Paul Craig. Then we have a week off entering December. A couple weeks in December, then the holidays off again. But that's episode 23. Let's all tune in to the MSG card. It's going to be one of the best of the year, potential fight of the year on the card. I'm your host, Shane Gillette. Excited to break this down with you guys next week. See you next week.